Hooray, it's a special wedding episode. Hi everyone, it's AlsoAshley. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to talk about the failure that was my first big public DJ gig. And we're going to learn a lesson from it. And I figured I would be in theme today, so I'm dressed as a bachelorette. Because I've always been a part of the bachelor party, never a bachelorette. Always a bachelor, never a bachelorette. This story gets good, by the way. Ambulance is involved, bigotry. Also, a very big disclaimer. I have no problem with religion. I'm not being critical. When I talk about it, there's a reason I'll be talking about it. Also, guess what? Most weddings involve a religion of some kind. That's not my fault. So, as you all know, I've been DJing for a while. Really started picking up the hobby in January of this year, 2025, if you're in the future. Hi, future Ashley. But for a while, I've been playing like private bars and doing some cosplay nerdy stuff. But it's all been very low-key and hidden and tucked away, and they don't even announce who I am or what I do, and I definitely don't make a scene. I usually just sneak in, do a couple things at a private bar, and then I get out of there. So, a friend of a friend knew that I was looking to do kind of a big public outing, do something a little bit bigger, but try and make it not so scary. So she was like, oh, I have a friend who has a wedding, is looking for a DJ. How would you feel about that? And I thought about it for a bit, and I was like, you know what? That actually might be a nice little dip in. There's not a lot of criticism at a wedding when it comes to music. Everybody is kind of expected to treat you nice. There's a lot less alcohol. Well, depending, I guess. But I felt like it might be a pretty calm environment to actually like get out into a crowd, like be present in one. Hopefully I can share some pictures showing the space and where I was over the course of this. Honestly, the biggest lesson to be learned is my own lesson, and you'll see why. But also, this might be helpful for folks who are trying to be an ally, looking to be supportive of a trans friend. Just some perspectives that might help you out in being the best friend you can be. So all the way back in like February, this friend of a friend, who I'm just going to call Sarah, reached out and said, I would love for you to DJ. It sounds amazing. I asked her, have you seen any of my stuff? I have some of it on YouTube. I can pass along more stuff. And she was like, sure. I checked with my friend who knew Sarah and kind of asked like, you know, look at me. Is she okay with that? My friend basically was like, oh, of course, you know, super liberal, super big ally, really big ally, knows the struggles. And it's important to note that Sarah doesn't know this side of me. She just knows me as Ashley. And I wasn't going to be the one to come forward and be like, oh, by the way, I'm kind of a big deal, you know, because I don't think that in the first place. Also really wasn't relevant to like a wedding, you know, it was more about the DJ thing. I did tell her like, you know, I'm kind of a big deal. If you want to look into me, you can. But on a base level, let's just say that, yes, she did know what I do. So we start building a playlist and messing around and start trading ideas back and forth. And I'm about a month and a half, 2 months into like quite a bit of work and planning and setting stuff up and getting music together and learning that she wants me to do announcements. So I'm like, okay. And I just figured like new equipment means more events in the future. So it's a good testing ground. You know, it was all testing stuff. And then I finally asked the question that I should have asked earlier, which was, what should I wear? And I get a response back that basically says, oh, you know, we're not in state. I'm in Washington. This wasn't in Washington. And I might have a couple uncles, you know, a couple uncles that might be kind of like pretty conservative and might, you know, not like, you know, or don't want to cause any problems, but for your safety, you know, I've decided, Sarah has decided for your safety, maybe you don't want to be trans for the event, maybe androgynous, just be like, you know, not. And that's not how she worded it. Looking back, I realized that's basically what it was, but I kind of blame myself at this point because instead of seeing the red flag and admitting it, I was hung up on, I need the practice. I'm already a couple months into this. I'm not going to explain gender politics to this lady and explain that hiding being trans or just not being trans for anything it's not an option for me. Also, I probably should have just used the excuse of like, more people are going to notice me trying to look masculine than just being, Okay, so this is the first part of lessons being learned. I should have been more upfront about how uncomfortable asking me to do that was. I decided not to do that. I figured, she was good-hearted. She was trying. She saw it as my safety. I did end up calling, not Sarah, but my other friend to basically explain how awkward that was for me. First off, to be asked for that, but also it being her deciding what my safety was, not necessarily giving me information, but more of just deciding like, I've decided for your safety, you should do this. So do that. So, wish I hadn't done it, but you know what? I spent a lot of my life, my previous job, masking. And it works as a pun, mask, or masculine. So this is a while back, and I was like, it's fine. I need the practice. I'll just do it. Didn't think much of it. Couple uncles, not going to be a problem, whatever. She's supposed to be super liberal. It's what she's been hinting at, and that's how she's been acting. So some more time goes by. We get closer to the wedding. I end up picking an outfit that I'll show here. That's about as androgynous as I can look. Sorry. Part of me played off the excuse in my mind of like, do an andro vibe, just make everyone a bit, questioning of their preferences. So I was okay with it. And then the rehearsal dinner rolls around. And I walk into the venue. It's a very nice place. And I am immediately greeted by some awkwardness and uncomfortableness. Sad to say, I'm kind of used to that, however I present. Also, like, I kind of get it, depending on what voice I'm using.
Or depending on what voice I'm using.
It can get a little confusing. And as I'm walking around, I start to feel kind of an uncomfortableness that I haven't felt in a while, which is basically like, I am thinking way too much about my gender right now and how I'm presenting. It's a problem I fixed by transitioning, And now I'm taking a couple steps back. What, just to make a couple uncles more comfortable around me? What the f*** am I doing? That's running through my head, and I'm thinking like, oh, this was stupid. But once I get to the music, it'll be better, and this will be worth it in the end. Again, I'm not blaming Sarah for everything. It's a lot of it is on me making concessions and not being clear, which hopefully you all can learn from too. More and more of the families trickling in from both sides, bride and groom, and it's like a 30-person rehearsal dinner space thing. I'm setting up my DJ booth, and suddenly someone rolls up and they're like, we're 4 minutes away from rehearsal. Where's the DJ booth? There should be music down at the field below. A couple months ago, along with the question of what I should be wearing, I asked, are there 2 DJ stations? Do I have to uproot, go to a space for the ceremony, or uproot and go to a space for dancing? Are they separate or are they the same? But you can guess what she said. So rehearsal night, I'm running down to the field. I'm throwing up a really quick speaker and throwing some mics at folks that I just happen to have. And we're running through rehearsal. And I'm like, okay, we're back on track. I'm still getting a lot of uncomfortable vibes. Nobody's come up and talked to me. Sarah said one word to me and hasn't talked to me since. And in my mind, I'm like, I get it. Wedding, busy. We're running through rehearsal, doing the whole thing. I'm getting a bunch of complaints about the audio that I haven't actually officially set up yet. And kind of try my best not to say, go f*** yourself. But it's all going well until somebody just straight up passes out. Older guy just on the ground. He's fine now, so I can laugh not at him. I'm laughing at the awkwardness of that. Luckily, most of the folks there were either doctors or nurses, so best place to pass out, I suppose. I don't know if you've seen the wedding videos, but a lot of folks do the thing where they lock their knees and then pass out. I've actually officiated multiple weddings. I could officiate your wedding, don't ask me. But I've officiated 3 of them, And one of the first things I say when I'm kind of running off the top with everyone, don't lock your knees. Nobody lock your knees. They didn't have an event coordinator or anything like that. So I guess that was a lesson they learned. He is fine. Here's a picture to prove that this happened. We did have an ambulance and a fire truck show up. It was a good way to start a wedding. Not stressful for the bride at all. So now we're doing the rehearsal dinner with everyone in the family. And the bride comes up, talks to me again, and finally says, you can actually leave if you want. And I looked at her and I said, aren't you doing speeches? Shouldn't I be here for that? I'm the one with the microphones and the audio. She's like, no, you can leave if you want. So I stuck around anyway, because what in the world were they going to do otherwise? Thankfully, I did stick around because they needed microphones. And I'm sitting there and someone finally comes up and grabs a mic from me and says 2 words. Everyone's sitting down at dinner. I'm in the corner running the audio. And then the speeches start to happen. And that's when I realized that Sarah wasn't very upfront about how conservative her family was. It wasn't just a couple uncles. It was every uncle and every family member. And apparently Sarah, well, at least the version of Sarah she was presenting to the rest of her family, not the person she actually is with all of her friends. Before I get any comments, I wasn't judging any of these folks. I didn't even know them. They weren't even talking to me, right? So how could I judge anybody or even understand their actual perspective? How I did get to know the overall feel and vibe of both families was what they said. I'm going to skip most of it. But in particular, there was this very long section in which they talked about how Sarah and her new husband had to raise their kids, if they had any, strictly conservative, because the world out there is rough and tough and evil and incorrect, and a lot of kids aren't being raised right, and they're starting to believe things that they shouldn't believe. Gender ideology, violence, manners, a loss in God and Wait, go back. What was that first one? I'm thinking in the corner, running the microphones for these folks. Do you know how f***ing awkward that is?
If it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, I'd been married a long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
You know how weird I felt? Here's the thing about all of that. Another version of me would have just shut the mic off and I would have left. Let me ask you a question, though. In this climate, how safe would I have been doing that? I'm not trying to fearmonger. Could have just walked away and that would have been the end of it, but I wasn't going to take that risk. And I hated that I even had to be thinking about that. Sarah, what the f***? There's kind of a big difference between I have a couple uncles or I'm hiding being conservative, but my entire family is conservative. It's really great for you, Sarah. So the lesson there is like, Sarah, yes, maybe you're not out to your family, but you have a choice to not be out to your family. By withholding the information that you did, I actually don't have a choice. You've put me in a situation that could be potentially pretty dangerous to me, based solely on the fact that your idea of how gender works and the ideology around it can easily be turned like a switch on and off. But the truth is like, it's not how it works. Even if I'm presenting masculine, even if I'm talking like that, still a woman. Sorry, I still feel like a woman. I still want to present and be considered and be embraced as the woman that I know I am, that makes me euphoric and feel joy and not feel depressed, you know? And it shocks me that so many folks sometimes won't even bat an eye when they ask someone who is queer or trans just to stop being that for a while. And I get the safety aspect of that. I do understand where that comes from. But part of the reason I'm saying this is like, if you're the one doing that to someone, to one of your friends, just consider what might be going through their head when they're told, don't be yourself. It's worthy of further discussion with that person. It shouldn't just be a request they should adhere to, and that's the end, you know? So anyway, I'm watching all of this happen at the rehearsal dinner. Everybody's agreeing with all the stuff that's being said. And I am not getting a single side eye or look, because I realize in retrospect that had been happening all the way up until the speeches anyway. And just to be clear, I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel like something was going to go down. But I also didn't have a choice. So, Sarah, in the future, definitely don't hire a trans DJ and then lie about how conservative the wedding is. It's kind of a wild thing to do to somebody. Okay, so I leave for the night. I kind of talk to a couple friends about my situation. I even talk about it on my socials a bit and come to the conclusion, I will go to the wedding. I will do this. It's going to cause way more issues without. There's a reason I wanted to do the wedding. You know, public stuff. Also, it's like a 200-person wedding. Most of the folks that are going to roll in are likely going to be her friends and not her very conservative family. I want to reiterate, I'm not judging being conservative. I'm judging what was said directly to me and around me and what was agreed upon that basically told me to my face, I shouldn't exist, and they don't want their family or their children or anyone around me to think that it's okay for me to be me. So that is what I'm judging these people on, not their religious views. Does that make sense? So to quickly wrap up, I do the wedding and it goes fine. And something I found really interesting about the entire event that night, I got talked to by the photographer and that was about it. The only other people who talked to me, some of the younger kids running around, like they wanted to come up and see what I was doing on the DJ board. Did they care how I looked or how I was dressed, or did they ask me any questions, or did they question their entire existence? No, they wanted to see what I was doing on the board, and I let them mix the board around a little bit. And then they walked off, and that was like it. What a scary thing to experience. They should have been raised more conservative, not had a trans DJ player at their wedding. So that's it. That's the story of my first big public DJ gig. Valuable lessons learned probably all around. And I just wanted to talk about it with all of you because I think it's an important thing to discuss. Try your best not to put anybody into a situation like I got into, as well as make smart decisions yourself that don't put you into that situation. When she said what she said about what I should wear, I should have been asking so many more questions. And I should have listened to the part of myself that said, this isn't worth it. So find out what's worth it for you, you know? What's your gender worth to you? For most of us, it's everything. And if there is to be an even more solid point about all of this, it's, don't lock your knees.
To each other.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thanks for letting me share that story. Hopefully we all learned a little something. I am very much looking forward to more and more DJ gigs. Hopefully not any like that. But if you enjoyed the story, please like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. They nuked my Instagram recently, so sharing is the only thing that helps me survive and do what I do for a living. So I would really appreciate it. But till I see you next time, be hot, resist fascism. Bye. Here's a funny story about me officiating. In my old job, one of my old bosses thought I was a preacher forever because he heard that I was officiating weddings and he heard that I had officiated so many of them. No, I wasn't. Definitely wasn't. Anyone can get officiated. You just kind of go online and figure it out. So who wants me to do their wedding?